Every generation believes its uncertainty is unique. It isn't. Markets have always moved. Rates have always shifted.
The question has never been whether the world will change. It will. The question is whether you have built something that doesn't require the world to cooperate.
Rates go up. Rates go down. Markets correct. New technologies emerge. Entire industries disappear.
Not a trend, not a cycle, a foundation. The kind of thing that doesn't move when everything else does.
The families in these communities are not speculating. They are living. And the investors who hold the notes on these homes are not gambling. They are collecting.
A promissory note is a legal promise, first-lien position, secured by the home, monthly payments, fixed terms, no tenants, no toilets, no 3 a.m. phone calls.
This is the document. This is what creates the income stream. And this is what we have been building for over a decade. 3 people, 1 document, 1 shared future. The seller gets liquidity, the investor gets income, the family gets a home. 400 transactions, 30 million in notes. Every single one bang. A family housed, an investor paid, a seller freed. The world will keep moving. Rates will keep shifting. And people will keep needing a place to live. The foundation will
build on something that doesn't move.
Welcome back to the Mobile Mailbox Money Mastermind. We're here today with the Family Bank, providing you unfiltered value into what we do on a day-to-day basis here inside private credit here in Arizona. We appreciate each and every one of you being here today. We'll go over some deal flow. We'll talk about, why we deem this an opportunity. We're getting big interaction today. Appreciate your interaction. I've got my cohorts here today. Sonny Finkel. Sonny, if you could just give everybody a quick tidbit about who you are, what you do, and why we're here today.
My name is Sonny Finkel, and I am the Investor Relations Specialist for Mobile Mailbox Money and Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. I'm also the Loan Compliance Coordinator for Win Mobile Homes. I help usher the sales agents' deals to the table so that we can create and generate more notes and have those available for our investors. I'm also operating the chat on the Zoom, so if you have any specific questions you want to ask, you're welcome to post that in the chat, and I will read it aloud and have it answered for you. If it is more specific to your individual situation, you're welcome to send a private message, and we'll do what we can to help you with all of your questions.
Yeah, we would love interaction. This is as involved or uninvolved as you'd like, but hopefully you'll get some value today, maybe even a potential interest in a capital investment, or really just get to know us a little bit more. The want is to provide transparency and trust, and hopefully we fulfill that here doing this weekly. But good afternoon, everyone. Before we get into these positions and the numbers, today I want to spend a few minutes on something more important, the why. Because understanding what we do is one thing, but understanding why it matters right now in this market, in this economy, in this moment is something different entirely. And I think that context changes everything about how you see this opportunity. Now, let me start with the scenario. Most of you will recognize a family in Phoenix, 2 working adults, and a combined household income of around $60,000 a year. They have been renting for 6 years. They want to own. They have a down payment saved. They have decent credit, and they're responsible people who have done everything right by every conventional measure. They apply for a traditional mortgage on an affordable home, and boom, they get declined. Not because they're a bad risk, because the home is manufactured housing, and the conventional lending system was not built for them. The bank says no. And the family goes back to renting another year, another 2 years, another 5 years. Now, let me show you the other side of that scenario. An investor, capital sitting in a savings account, generating 4% while inflation quietly erodes its purchasing power, or locked in a rental property that generates phone calls at midnight and requires active management to produce passive income. They're looking for something better, something that actually behaves like passive income, something that performs whether or not they show up. What most people never realize is that these 2 people, the family that cannot get financing and the investor who needs a better position are the solution to each of their problems. That is exactly what this platform does and exists to facilitate. Here's how it works. Win Mobile Home sources affordable manufactured homes across Arizona communities. We rehab them, we navigate community approvals, we underwrite the buyer, we structure a seller-financed transaction compliant with Dodd-Frank guidelines. The family gets a path to ownership the conventional system would never give them. A promissory note is created, a payment schedule, a legal obligation secured by a first-lien position against the home they are now financing. And the investor who holds that note receives a contractual monthly payment, fixed, predictable, secured by real collateral for a 20-year term. No tenants, no maintenance, no midnight calls, no market dependency, just the payment arriving every single month, because the family is not going to stop paying for the roof over their children's head. That's not a theory. That is the most consistent behavioral pattern in residential real estate. People protect home payments above almost every other financial obligation. Now, let me give you a scale of what we are building. In the last 60 days, we have originated close to approximately $1 million in performing first lien notes. Those are notes we are actively looking to raise capital and ultimately do another $1 million here following in the next 30 days. We currently maintain $1 million in performing, seasoned, available for acquisition at unpaid principal balance seller finance notes. Active pipeline positions today represent nearly $300,000 in capital, generating approximately $3,000 per month in contractual borrower payments. These are not projections. These are live positions. But here's what I want you to understand beyond the numbers. Every one of these positions represents a family that now has housing stability they could not access through conventional channels. Every one of these positions represents an investor who stepped into this seat, the bank abandoned, and is being compensated appropriately for doing so. And every one of these positions is secured by the one asset that has never stopped being in demand, regardless of what the market has done. That's affordable housing. The housing shortage in the country is not a cycle. It's a structural reality. Builders are not being financed to build affordable inventory. Banks are not lending on manufactured homes. The supply gap is widening while the demand never decreases. The gap is our market. And the private lender who understands how to operate inside of it, who can source the asset, rehab it, navigate approval, underwrite the borrower, originate the note, and service it compliantly, is creating something that conventional financial systems cannot replicate. Contractual monthly income backed by necessity, not speculation, not appreciation, not hope. A promise documented in a promissory note secured by a first lien, paid by a family who has ownership over everything that pull on their budget. Mobile Mailbox Money is the educational platform where investors learn how this system works from the ground up. How notes are created, how positions are evaluated, how capital is deployed correctly. Silvercrest Opportunity Fund is the private credit vehicle where accredited investors deploy capital into the positions starting at a $50,000 minimum. Today, we're going to walk through every active position in this pipeline in detail. You're going to see the collateral. You're going to understand the terms. You're going to understand the borrower profiles. You're going to understand exactly what makes each position and why it was structured the way it is. But before we do that, I want to leave you with one thought. The best investments I have ever seen were not the ones with the most complicated structures or the ones with the most sophisticated financial engineering. They were the ones that solved a real problem for a real person while generating a real return for real investors. This is what we do every day. One family at a time, one note at a time, one payment at a time. So let's get into it today. Talk about some transactions that we have, some seasoned notes. We'll talk about some construction lending, as well as some potential pad splits. Not only potential, but two that we're actually fulfilling to come turnkey to the market. and kind of talk about, what that looks like and why it may be an opportunity. So last week we talked about lot 116. It got absorbed into the fund. I had some people ask questions, what does that look like if I were to invest in the fund? I liked the deal that you provided. I'm really looking for more safety, stability, and security inside my portfolio while still making a smashing return. Well, that's a fund investment. You invest accredited at a $50,000 minimum and partake in the stability of over 30 positions currently performing in the portfolio. Little different than just buying a note, one note to one investor. That investor could be accredited or non-accredited. They could use other people's money to buy those transactions. But in the fund, you're backed by multiple positions, providing you a per unit owner share in my portfolio as we perform out in the market, and at no cost to the limited partners. If a note goes non-performing, we reperform the asset and ultimately keep making distributions to our accredited investors. And that's in Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. We could deploy $50 to $1 million and help you start earning income just like in a bank's position, but make 3 times the return that they're offering in a CD with similar liquidity around a 1 to 3 year program. At 1 year, you get a annualized commitment for a 10% interest only paid monthly payment. For a 3-year term, it's 12% for a quarterly distribution on a 3-year lockup. So those are immediately available. We have these positions we'll talk about that are in the fund, right? I could sell a note out of my portfolio to an investor, and we'll talk about these seasoned notes, right? That an investor could buy out of my portfolio. They pull it within theirs, like say lot 116, just hypothetically, right? Say we had this performing for a couple months. You could buy it out of Silvercrest via mobile mailbox money strategy, right? And ultimately hold that in your IRA, solo 401k, or really just your personal investment. Wouldn't recommend doing it personally, but talk to an attorney about that at the end of the day. So that's the fund. That's some kind of seasoned notes that we could potentially place that you buy out of my portfolio and take within yours, and you make the full monthly payment. Lot 116 got absorbed last week, actually, into our portfolio, and it's been a consummated, qualified, and in July will be a cash flowing position. So extremely excited about this one. This was one of, I think, 6 that closed this month already. We'll have our 7th transaction we'll talk about here shortly. But we talked about this last week. It's a fresh deal, so we'll keep moving. Lot 330 in Siena Vista's mobile home park. Sonny does some transaction coordinating via Win Mobile Homes. Sonny, maybe if you could just talk about this transaction.
Sure. It is a 2018 Clayton single wide. It's a 2-2 with a sunroom. It is a 55 and up community, which I personally like because I feel like the borrowers are more stable. They are usually on a fixed income. The sale price on this property is $99,000. They put $2,000 in earnest money and a total of $4,000 down payment. So the note amount is $95,000. The payment is $1181.34 a month for 20 years.
So this home is closing, I think today or tomorrow, one of the two. It's currently in escrow, and the buyer borrowers Dodd-Frank compliant. They processed their full down payment, and we're at the closing table. I think I bought this house for $34,000. We probably put that into it. So we're into it for about $75,000. We stand to make $25,000 on this exit, but we're creating a seller finance note in order to capture, additional transaction base, additional buyers. So this note at $95,000, right? $95,000 paying $1181.34 a month is currently closing. You could buy this note in its entirety, right? buy it out of my portfolio, you own it within yours, and you make the full monthly payment of $1,181.34 in first lien, only lien position. We're currently seeking funding. This property, likely after this meeting, will get absorbed into the fund, but we give you guys first right of refusal of the notes that we show on this platform. So if this is of interest, the objective, the pawn forward here to take massive action, is to put your email in the chat, and we will actually send you the full collateral file. Sonny, what's a full collateral file for a note investment? I'm not getting technically titled ownership of the property. I'm not having to go walk the house. What does that look like for my collateral if I were to buy this note?
Pictures of the property, the information on the borrowers, the Dodd-Frank compliance package, along with their pay stubs, their tax returns, their background check, their credit reports, their taxes and insurance bills, their copies of their IDs, the settlement statement from the closing, the final settlement statement from the closing, a copy of the promissory note, the approval certification from the park. I think that's about it.
So upon your, solidification of interest, we will send that full file. Looks like someone raised their hand. Put your question in the chat. Type it up. I'll give you just a moment if you like while I look for this next note here.
The question in the chat says, do you ever accept discounted offers on the notes?
So our notes sell at above par. Have you ever heard of that before? People selling notes above par? That's an interesting thing to say because most people are taught to buy notes at a discount. These are not really for resale at the end of the day. This is a fully Dodd-Frank compliant, a pipeline of a business, right? Where you can know where to go to get the same type of product on a regular basis, a cyclical program. So no, we do not discount our notes. We appreciate that question more than you realize because it's good to talk about. We have, I think, 25 people on this Zoom here. I've got probably 50 regular investors. So, anything can happen, but we don't need to sell them that bad. I'd rather just hold it, to be frank. But great.
What's good to understand about that position, though, is that we always do comps on the properties, and we list the properties for sale a little bit below what the market rate is, just so that we can, sell the properties quickly. And then we accept a large down payment from the borrower. So as you buy the note, less the down payment, you are getting your instant equity on the property.
So, full processes that these buyer borrowers go through. We didn't just sit down and write on a napkin. We're a licensed, bonded, insured with a licensed mortgage officer and third-party underwriting dealer of manufactured housing, license 8670 here in the Arizona market. This is quite literally the closest you can get to becoming the bank. You're literally becoming the bank, but Chase, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, they don't sell their notes because they have hundreds of billions of dollars at the end of the day. We're an 8-year program. We've done likely around over $30 million in transactions. That's about 400 doors in the Arizona market. And we open this up at the end of the day in the want to do additional transaction base. One day, hopefully someday soon, these notes will no longer be available. We'll just be absorbing them into the fund. My want is to hit a $50 million benchmark within these transactions. And with your help, as well as what we do here weekly, hopefully we're getting one step closer to financial freedom, but also creating a lasting impact here in the Arizona market. We have a kind of different structure here. This is lot 347. We talked about. So lot 347, this is a performing note on a 1-year term, interest only, kind of unique within this transaction. The buyer was looking for a little bit cheaper of a monthly payment. I think their total payments are about $2,000 a month, which is average rent here in the Valley for like a 3-bed, 2-bath. So that being said, they match rent, own this house. The unpaid balance on the house is $100,000. At $100,000 with a 1-year term, interest only payment of $1,000 a month, right? So you're making $12,000 a year just acquiring this position in a seasoned performing Tempe market. Right, we've done upwards of $2 million just in this one park in lot 340 in Chaparral Village. It's owned by Cal-Am Properties, and great relationship we have, but huge demand we get for this area, the Tempe market, for a family community. They could have potentially 1, 2, or 3 different borrowers inside these houses. We try to stay away from 2-bed, 1-baths. We have another home, I think, coming available in this community. So, different variety that we provide out in the market, and ultimately to capture, more transactions. But also we do all of that work, find the house, buy it, rehab it, risk mitigate it, underwrite the borrower, transact that sale to get to this monthly payment of $1,000 a month with no banks. Where can you find a transaction like that? The answer's little to no availability, unless maybe you're in the business or you maybe know another operator around the nation. But the likelihood of you finding a return like this with no banks with a bow on it is virtually non-existent. So I'm not blowing snake oil. I'm not blowing smoke. This is it, people. Let's continue here. Another seasoned note. So that was an interest-only transaction on lot 347. Lot 41, I could sell out of Silvercrest portfolio as now a seasoned transaction, right? What does a seasoned transaction mean? It means payments are being made, in most cases, more than 6 months. And this got, I believe, absorbed about 2 months ago. So we're getting closer to the full seasoning of this transaction. Lot 41 in Glendale Cascade, we bought, rehabbed, resold, seller financed, and now have a payment coming in every month on the 5th. You buy this note, you receive payments, I think, on the 9th from Automatic Funds Transfer Services. So it's not the buyer borrower paying you direct to your account. There's a baked in servicer, Automatic Funds Transfer Services, that ultimately transacts that payment. The buyer borrower can make payment online. They can call them and tell them what kind of bad day they had or whatever. The objective is to just have that wall up to receive the payment at $94,000 unpaid balance, paying $1,237.38 for a 20-year term. These seasoned notes go at above par, okay? They sell for a $2,000 transaction fee that takes care of our sales staff, and ultimately the transfer of this note to your portfolio. Say you were wanting your own note, you really don't want to invest in the fund, but you're looking for a payment that's been being made, right? There's some track record there. Ultimately, to maybe ease some concern of a table funding, or you're not a construction lender, or you have IRA money that you want to park for 20 years and double your money contingent on that payment taking place for the next till the maturity of that transaction. $1,237.38 a month, $1,237.38 a month for $94,000, and you get granite, new cabinets, new electrical, plumbing, serviced roof, serviced AC unit, central AC unit, located in an institutionally owned community by CalAm Properties by the name of Glendale Cascade. I think we've done close to 15 to 20 transactions in this one park. So these homes are diversified across Glendale, Mesa, Tempe, Phoenix, Apache Junction. They're not just in one park. I don't own one. I'm not the owner of one park that I'm seller financing these homes in one area. You know, these are diversified all across the 60. I just picked up 2 properties in Peoria. So from Peoria to Glendale, Phoenix, Apache Junction, we're going west to east here, to all the way to Mesa to Apache Junction. You know, our diversification off the major metropolitan markets here in Arizona is unmatched. The availability to do that is only in manufactured housing. The likelihood of doing that in residential real estate, you know, maybe if you had $100 million, but we did this with like 5 to 10 million, right? And we pro forma'd these homes and ultimately offer them back for a investor's passive investment strategy. Does anyone have any questions? I'm kind of talking pretty quick. I'm just going to slow it down a bit. Go ahead and type them in the chat if you like. This is your time.
I just wanted to make a quick comment while you're showing all these pictures, just to have everybody really notice what it is that they're looking at in these photos. We're looking at, you know, top level, full size appliance, stainless steel appliances. We're looking at subway tile backsplashes. We're looking at upgraded ceiling fans. We're looking at laminate flooring. We're looking at granite countertops. We're looking at modern fixtures and design. We're looking at tile showers. We're really looking at a top quality rehab on our part. Certainly not your usual, you know, particle board, apartment size appliances, kind of a thing that you might typically see in a property like this. Look at the handles on the cabinets, the nickel fixtures. It really is a beautiful job.
And there's really not many people nationally packaging a turnkey manufactured home fix and flip strategy with the seller finance component, you know, and merging those two because of the need for affordable solutions in the market. You know, I think we have a superior product. You know, like you said, it's not builder grade. I rehabbed some newer houses, you know, 2015, 2017. They're not brand new, but those homes have like particle board or, you know, their own manufactured cabinets. You know, these are straight from Home Depot cabinets that go into single family properties that are not normally put into manufactured housing. You know, in addition to that, we check the electrical and the plumbing, you know, call it a 50-item checklist, almost like when you go to a dealer of a car dealership and they're reselling the car, right? They have their inspection that they go through and make sure that they risk mitigate that transaction. So not only they can limit the liability of selling that home, but also to hedge the risk of the loan. You know, 9 out of 10 transactions are a loan. You know, most people don't have 30, 50, 100, 120,000 to put down, but they're qualified enough to buy that house. You know, so to provide that, you know, is really game changing. Let's continue here. Whoops.
Just to add that it is also included on the outside, the landscaping, the roof coatings, the siding, everything.
So this home, $94,000, $1,237.38 a month. For $96,000, you buy this out of my portfolio and you hold it within yours, right? I could send you this full collateral file. Just put the lot number and your email address in the Zoom chat. This is lot 41. Put your email and we can send that full collateral file ultimately to get you a little bit closer potentially to doing a transaction. Same thing here, lot 129. I think we talked about this one last week as well, but this is now a performing asset. This was during rehab of these photos. And Sonny, I think you handled this transaction. We talked about it last week. Let's talk about it again here.
La Montaña del Sur 129 is a 1998 Cavco 3.2 single wide, 960 square feet in an all-age park. The sale was $99,500. The earnest deposit was $2,000 and a total down payment of $3,000 for a note of $96,500. The payment is $1,200.
And they did have $2,000 additional in prepaid taxes and insurance. So
correct.
They have insurance on the property, they've prepaid the taxes, and now it's a performing asset, right? At $96,500, paying $1,200 a month for a 20-year term. That total acquisition cost is $98,500. So at $98,500, you buy this note out of my portfolio, you hold it within yours. I did a sale of a transaction. Sonny, if someone didn't want a 20-year term, and wanted to participate in this note, but maybe is not accredited, what kind of tools and weaponry do we have at our disposal to help capture that investor?
We can sell them the note, and if they're not accredited, and the note is it's a financial instrument, and especially when it's performing. If you don't want to stay in it for 20 years, you can resell it. You can return it to us to resell for you. We do that a lot when people want to become liquid. I wanted to throw in too, just in case anyone is curious, what those fees are. The insurance for the year on this property is $987.06, so under $1,000 a year for full coverage insurance, and the taxes are $218.64 for the year. So taxes and insurance, just a little over $1,000 for the whole year, really makes it reasonable.
So, in addition to your
availability, the borrower pays that as a reminder.
So, in addition to your availability to resell a note, you could sell a note to your uncle, you could sell a note to an IRA investor, you could sell a note to anyone. It's not technically considered a securities, right? So there's exit when you buy a whole note transaction. In addition, say they didn't want a 20-year term and they're non-accredited, or really they just want to get kind of introduced to the program. At that same balance of, say, $96,500, they can participate on a 1-year term via hypothecation. Sonny, what does hypothecation mean?
The exact definition, word for word, and tell us what it is, Alden.
It means to pledge an asset in order to garnish capital investment. I'm taking a loan against a loan that I own or that I know of. Could be that, So we're giving you the collateral still. You still get to review the collateral file in addition, but you get 19 years of liquidity, right? So what does that mean? 19 years of every year for 19 years, or really for 1 to 5 or whatever it may be, it's on an annualized agreement. You get potential call for liquidity or an auto rollover. Listen, if that note's still performing, I'm going to just figure out how to let it ride if you like at the end of the day, and hopefully we're on the same page about that. If not, I bring it on the platform and I sell it to another one of our investors. We provided the liquidity within that transaction, to any one of the hedge funds, private investors that we are in contact with. Listen, not everyone's a note investor. I don't really know much about reselling a note. I don't know how to sell a partial. I don't know how to put that note in a trust and sell beneficial interest, but I love the strategy. I want to invest, but there's maybe a lack of education or comfortability owning an entire note in my portfolio. Hypothecation. That's where that comes into play. You hitch your cart to a qualified operator, with massive track record. And at $96,500 for a 1-year term, let's just run through what a payment would look like for that.
$1,200.
$96,500 times your proposed interest rate divided by 12 is $804.16, right? So for a 1-year term, you're making $8,800, $9,000 a year, secured in first-lien position, while somebody else manages the note. Who's that somebody else? Wynn Mobile Homes. So Win Mobile Homes has 15 in rehab, 7 in sales, 5 in management, probably 100 investors that are circulating at any given time, as well as the branding to stand behind that position if and when it does go non-performing. Our default rate is low, we risk mitigate it, but that's the risk within the strategy. There is risk in investment. It's important to consume that message, but at the end of the day, we do the best we can to risk mitigate it. And in a hypothecated position at no cost to the investor, if that note goes non-performing, we reperform the asset and likely either have your interest start accruing, right, on a deferred balance, or we just keep making the payment depending on the stability of that specific transaction. One note, one investor, non-securitized asset, right? I borrow against a loan that I have in my portfolio and we cash flow together. You're still making a double-digit interest rate, which is hard to find anywhere else out in the financial market, secured in senior collateral position, right? So you can buy the whole note, buy it out of mine, put it in yours, and you make the full yield, full monthly payment. But ultimately that risk is the investors. For this same note, I hypothecate it. I pledge that note in order to garnish capital investment from my investor. One note, one investor. You get the same lien position, same performing collateral, but now you have a baked in servicing company that at no cost to the investor ends up reperforming the asset, mitigates risk. If we need to put a payment on the back of the loan, you're still getting paid at the end of the day. Tough to find a transaction like that. Hopefully I explained that to the best of my ability. So let's continue down the road here. That was lot 129. If that's of interest, put 129 in the chat with your email and we'll send you an email immediately. Continuing down our performing note portfolio. This is lot 20. Talked about this last week as well, but let's continue. This unpaid balance performing note over a year seasoning on this transaction. The unpaid balance is $109,069. For a 20-year term, there's a little bit less on that. We can get you the accurate remaining term on that contract. The payment's $1,361, $1,300 a month. This is one of 30 positions in my portfolio. Imagine what the 10, 5, 30, 100 notes could do for your financial freedom. It's literally life-changing. Okay, so this property, $109,069, paying $1,361.66 for a 20-year term. This home, I believe, was like a year 2015. This is our acquisition. At acquisition, I have the turnkey photos as well as a full walkthrough of the rehab that we did. We really just kind of painted it, checked electrical and plumbing, it being a newer manufactured home, and put it back for sale. I think we made $25,000-$30,000 just flipping this house, but now it's performing in my portfolio. Let's say you ran this full payment on an amortization schedule. Download Carl's mortgage calculator. If you don't have it, do yourself a service. Download that real quick. It is for free. At $109,069, just round, for a 20-year term. That summary, so if I go to the right tab of this mortgage calculator, the total interest received is $216,441, $216,441.97. The total payments received is over $250,000, so $325,510.97. If you're savvy in notes, you understand what a mortgage calculator is, and you understand what an amortization schedule is. For the people that are not familiar and saying, I'm used to banking on appreciation, I'm used to owning the property, don't I miss out on the appreciation of this asset? Well, look at this. You made more money than any appreciating asset, likely, outside of huge equity increases, more than any other market, right? I mean, what's average appreciation? Average appreciation is like 5%, I think, at the end of the day. This outpaces combined net operating income on a long-term rental strategy in combination with your average appreciation on a single family residence. You're already outperforming those two numbers in an agreed upon return with no banks, no fluctuations in insurance, no fluctuations in taxes. The list goes on. Any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. We appreciate your interaction today. So we are at lot 125. This transaction is a construction loan. So today we talked about a fund position. We talked about a position that's in escrow to close. We talked about seasoned performing note inventory outside of the Silvercrest portfolio. And now this is a short-term private credit component for an individual to participate before the property sells. You don't have to buy it, rehab it, seller finance it, structure the payments, make sure it's compliant. You participate as the lender, right, on this property. And how does that work? Well, at $65,000 for a 1-year term is $541 a month. You could participate immediately with the first lien position. We've had this property sold 2-3 times. The buyers didn't get qualified. So we're looking to leverage this home at a 1-year term. Likely will mature within the next 6 months, but just in case, I would hate to tap you again as a passive investor, ultimately to redraft docs. We drafted at a year. In exchange for your $65,000, you get a first lien, only lien on this asset, right? And are afforded a $541.66 monthly payment, right? And in addition to the monthly payment, when we seller finance this house, you'll get a first right of refusal. Hey, Alden, how do I get front of the line for a transaction? Your notes get gobbled up either by the fund or by other individuals savvy like Mr. Madison on the meeting today. Appreciate having you here, Rodney. How do I get to the front of the line? I don't play favorites. This is a first come, first serve equation. And in a construction loan, you set yourself up at the front of the line to take a first right of refusal of the seller finance note that will inadvertently come available. At $65,000, first lien, only lien on the property. When we sell this property, say at its current price point of $83,000, right? At $83,000, we'll take a $5,000 down payment. Let's just run through this real quick. $5K, so you're down. So we sold it, say hypothetically, right? Tomorrow, someone walks in, puts this under contract, and you took the first lien construction loan today at $65,000. We would provide you first right of refusal, and you would come from the unpaid balance of your construction loan to the proposed unpaid balance of the seller finance loan, right? Purchase price minus down payment gets you your unpaid balance, which in this case, hypothetically, $83,000, $5K down, unpaid balance is $78,000. So your principal balance of the construction loan is $65,000. You would fund additionally $13,000, right, to purchase the first lien, only lien on this property, and you now participate in the success of that note. Okay. So that gets you first right of refusal, and let's say hypothetically you are really just a short-term lender. I don't want an annualized agreement. I understand the great golden nugget of a 20-year loan, or I want some more potential for liquidity, maybe once or twice throughout the year. That's a construction lending component, right? And you could participate at a first lien on a property. You don't need to take the first right of refusal, and we'll just roll you to another asset, either pay you off or request to transfer to another transaction that our deal flow permits. We've shopped, I think, 3 to 5 deals like every 3 days. So I'm shopping a deal a day right now. So the likelihood of us having another place to put that capital, but you get a call for liquidity around the 6-month mark in most cases, right? And ultimately get to have the potential of liquidity, but also the option to redistribute that unpaid balance of your construction loan to another transaction, continually earning, right? With no disruption in payments, no disruption in interest accrual. If you took a deferred payment, we would strike you your interest check, right? And put the principal allocated towards another transaction. Some people like that program. They like being in a short term. They want liquidity call. They may not fully understand a seller finance note, but they're a private lender. That's a great place to walk in with a qualified operator and start performing immediately today at the end of the day. And we'll get down to a per diem for those transactions, ultimately to earn your business. So that's 125. There's no collateral file technically. We could show you our titled ownership of this property in addition to the photos and some updated photos that we have of this house. We have people actively walking this home. So I think yesterday Serena had somebody walk this house and another, because these are in that Tempe market, highly sought after. Excuse me. So we showed, I think, 2 homes in the Tempe market, lot 347 and lot 125. Let's continue down the road here. So I think this is our last seasoned performing note we'll talk about today. This is lot 69. An investor of mine, his son actually bought this property in the Tempe market, same house, same community, Cal-Am owned. This is a 4-bedroom unit. This 4-bedroom, 2-bath is been performing for, I think, 2, maybe 3, 4 months. Let me just pull up my notes here. So as a 4-2 that we did a complete rehab on, this is lot 69. Bear with me here. Lot 69, located 400 West Baseline Road, Tempe. Projected unpaid balance $102,260.89. They paid $125 or $122.5. So they put $20,000 down, a 20% down payment on this transaction. Right, paying over $13,000 a year in passive cash flow for $102,000 unpaid balance. The seasoned nature of this transaction provides us an assignment fee of $2,000. So your total acquisition cost is $104,260.89, affording you $1,274.61 a month for a 20-year term. Do your amortization, look that up. You can see the light. So that's just a little TikTok video my sister did. Follow Serena Guajardo on TikTok. Took me, I think, 2 to 3 years to get her on TikTok, and now I think half of our business sales come from Serena's TikTok. We got a question in the chat. Hello, question here. I can start with investing 2 property or notes under $150,000. Is that possible to add, move over the next few months? So we do a tremendous, appreciate your interaction today, Mr. Stewart, getting the thumbs up there. So just to kind of maybe roll through 2 scenarios, how can I start with investing 2 properties or notes under $150,000? Is that $150,000 each, or is that $150,000 total? Both are achievable, right? We have average positions from 50 to 100,000. sometimes a little bit more, sometimes in rare cases a little bit less. But long story short, you could participate, say, with 150 on 2 transactions, or you could take a superior asset that we put out on the market and buy 1 transaction for 120, something like that, kind of nimble in that accord. And is that possible to move over the next few months? So, our deal flow and transaction base is a cycle. We've run a system here. Okay. We're not just chefing a tape of notes that I got from John Denver in New York, right? I have 40 something homes in our inventory right now that are currently in rehab, for sale, or in escrow. What does that mean? That means we have deal flow coming to the table. So say you miss out today, is your loss, but we have other notes coming to the table. Okay. They're not always this down payment. They're not always in this area. It's kind of a mixed bag because we diversify across the metropolitan markets here in Arizona. So great question. Great to provide clarity. Let me interpret that maybe a little bit differently. Say it was 150,000 and you were looking for liquidity within 3 to 6 months. Kind of different spin on that question, right? You're looking for more liquidity. That's a construction loan. You lend at 75% loan to value on the property. We stabilize that home, reseller finance that house, and provide you a call for liquidity. What does that mean? We either strike you a check and pay off your unpaid balance with interest, or we've been making interest payments, and or transfer that to another opportunity. So you get another transaction, you continue earning your agreed upon rate, and ultimately continue earning your return on investment, right? Some people are kind of planning, in 6 months to a year, I'm going to buy single family. In a year from now, my daughter's going to college, or, whatever scenario or personal tidbit that you have. We'd love to help you hit that benchmark. The reality is, at the end of the day, every dollar that you have liquid in your account is quite literally losing 10% interest a year. You're losing 0.8% of your money every month right now to inflation, and inflation is kicking up. The idea of hedging in bonds or low yield mutual funds is now becoming more concerning, because now you're really just breaking even more than anything, and it's important to have these alternatives as a portion of one's portfolio. Not saying cash out everything by any means. Would I recommend putting all your eggs in one basket? Okay. But to have this tool for your portfolio, is truly a need right now, I think, more than ever. In addition, to find an income-oriented investment strategy with no maintenance, management, insurance, taxes, and you make a double-digit interest rate, that's needed as well. That's the definition of financial freedom, and hopefully we can help you achieve that. So I talked briefly in the very beginning of this meeting about pad split. If you're familiar with the term pad split, they're a tech company and they specialize in weekly rentals. So midterm rentals, rent by the room. And why is that an opportunity right now? Well, that being said, it's because the need for affordable rentals, right? These on pad split, actually average rental term is like 8 to 9 months. So it may be a weekly rental, but they're staying damn near the whole year at the end of the day. And that just shows, in addition to their data that they provide, I'm getting a little ahead of myself in this video, but the data that they provide shows a consistent 90% occupancy rate here in the Arizona market. So there's demand, we have a solution to a problem, and the returns for the same property now balloon up another 10, 15% on top of what a conventional rental strategy would be. Stay with me here, okay? Because we've talked about being the bank and having a note investment strategy, but also we can't forget the need for affordable solutions out in the market. So I have this potential multifamily component in the South Mountain market that we have potential to assume the loan for 6 months, refinance, and cash flow as a legacy asset. 4037 South 12th Street, pad split opportunity. The Lotus and Loom was the current and is the current property manager. This entire 12 duplex complex was listed at 7.2 million. Okay. And I'll kind of talk a little bit more about the numbers here in a second. But it's going to foreclosure at the end of this month, and they've expressed interest in letting us assume the loan for a term of 6 months at 24 units, 12 duplexes. Current condition is 84 rooms. Okay, the builder that is actually going under for this transaction expressed that he would turn every unit into a 4-bedroom unit here. So now we've got 96 rooms on an assumed loan. The debt service is $75,000 a month, right? So likely with $900,000, I could assume this loan, have 96 total bedrooms at a weekly rental rate of about $220 a week, I think it was. So they're about $800 a month, right, that they're getting per room. At 800 times 96 rooms times 12 is $921,600. In addition to that cash flow, oh, hold on. Give me a sec, because that's 90% occupancy. So let's get a little more accurate here. 90% of that is $829,440, right? So we're cash flowing over $800,000 a year at pro forma, and even with the assumed loan of $75,000 a month at a 13% rate for hard money to get this established, we're still cash flowing at a 90% rate. In addition to the rental strategy, it has recently appraised at $9.6 million. Do I have the appraisal in here? I do. So here's the actual appraisal. They appraised at $800,000 per unit, per duplex, right? So 800,000 times 12 is 9.6 million. It's listed at 7.2 million. The distress of this transaction allows us to also assume the loan, but also likely negotiate our assumed price point on this transaction. If you're a multifamily investor and you're looking at this right now, I need capital to take this down. We can operate this transaction with our staff, our seasoned staff. You know, my father has been a longtime multifamily, small multifamily developer, wholesaler, and operator. He flipped 100 homes in El Mirage, in addition to our bells and whistles of each, ultimately each strategy that we offer on our fund, availability to offer liquidity in the next 6 months. I need a partner. I'm looking for a partner today. So at $900,000, you would potentially take on a 50-50 partnership in this structure, kind of pretty choice at the end of the day, to walk in with a bow of investment and now at pro forma, ultimately likely make around a 14% yield on our transaction, and provide us the nimbleness to refinance either with a small business loan or ultimately a DSCR transaction, or pull in a full equity offering into our fund. So here's kind of the Crexley listing. I could send this to you if you like. I may put this in the chat real quick. Let me see if I can do that if you like. So you guys can save this. Bear with me here. Does anyone have any questions about this? It's definitely a larger strategy for maybe a group or someone that's raising capital. You know, those are transactions that don't come to the table publicly very often. You know, this availability, I've been trying to keep on the low at the end of the day, because I had 2-3 investors that were expressed interest and they actually can't do it because of timing, or ultimately because of a tax problem they have with liquidating, you know, $1 million from a stock investment. So, you know, wanted to talk about this lightly because we are in the throes of a pad split and need for affordable rentals by the room, not only in the Arizona market, but also other major markets as well. Pad splits in probably half or maybe 10 of the top states in the nation, and they're running their program. They're actually petitioning on the White House lawn and lobbying for more solutions in affordable housing. And to have a brand new build like this in distress, where the president of Pad Split actually came through and walked this property, and they're like foaming at the mouth to try and get this thing on their platform. It takes an operator and capital to bring that to the table. And hopefully that's where we come in. So their foreclosure for, I think the first building is on the 30th. So we're almost 5 days out from that taking place. So if you need this full Dropbox, I'd love to send that over to you. You know, just put 4039 in the Zoom chat, and I'll send you the appraisal, the pro forma, the investment memo, and the Crexy for you to potentially review. It's currently 30% occupied. So the property manager says they have a wait list, and as well as Pad Split says they have people looking in this area for these types of units. So, you know, it's not just the opportunity. It's not just walking into $1 million to $2 million in already equity value into the program. It's the additional bells and whistles in the back end of Pad Split's, you know, extreme interest into the program, as well as our niche market operations in affordable housing management, and ultimately have maintenance staff and things of that nature. You know, all of that's baked in to that at the end of the day. And how did we get there? How did we get to the want to kind of tackle a pad split equation? Well, we bought a few. We now own two, a 12-bedroom in Tempe and a 10-bedroom that'll come shortly after and operating in the pad split market. This is 1849 East Hayden Lane. I'm actually vlogged this, vlog 148 as seen on YouTube, where we walk through, talk with my contracting partners who are equity partners within both of these transactions, Griffin Roofing and Construction. I think they've done 50,000 roofs and remodels here in the Arizona market. So you couldn't get a better partner at the end of the day to bring these properties to turnkey and ultimately start operating them inside a pad split component, a room rental component on weekly or midterm, average term about 8 months people stay. And these will be facilitating the student living, student housing, because ASU is right down the street. So both of these will be seeking student to ultimately fulfill as they continue their education. And in addition, we have the option to rent to really anybody else as they qualify. So that's 1849 East Hayden Road, which is here in the Tempe market. If you're not familiar, you know, super centrally located. To find a property on, it's not Hayden Road, it's Hayden Lane, but to even have the name Hayden on an address is really eye-opening. You know, this property, I think we bought 1849, we bought for $305,000 with the pre-existing structure. So we like stole this development at the end of the day from the architect who owned it since the 80s. So, you know, our deal flow and touch and branches and roots go extremely far, vast, far and wide to find transactions like this. And then we have 1318 Cedar Street, 1318 Cedar, where we are doing a 12-bedroom unit in this single-family home. It's got 2 additional structures in the back. So here, let me see real quick.
What's up, guys? Patrick with Griffin Construction. Wanted to bring you to a new project that we have. This is a house that we bought in Tempe. We're going to be redeveloping this roughly 3,000 square foot house. We're going to put 10 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms in it. Right now, as you can see, it's pretty rough. We're going to take you on just a quick tour around the property. Again, we bought this at Tempe, near the light rail. We're going to go for some student housing projects here. So what I want you guys to do is stay tuned on our Facebook and Instagram to come.
Boom. So not to pref that too much, that was actually 1849 East Hayden Lane. I thought it was a video of Cedar, but you know, we're in the throes of rehabs. We're in the throes of transactions. We're in the throes of quite literally life-changing opportunities. You know, if you're unfamiliar, mobilemailboxmoney.com is where people sign up to be a part of this ecosystem, this strategy, and it ultimately gives you access to these Zooms that stream live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. And I realized, I think today, that these on Facebook do delete after 30 days. So if you're looking for the previous masterminds, go on Zoom. Go on YouTube, go to the live tab, and you'll see the past year or two of videos at the end of the day. In addition, we have my books on Amazon. You can Google my name. I'm going to put that in the chat here in a minute for you to be able to kind of just cure some more curiosity. They're $5 and $10. The Mobile Mailbox Money Guide teaches you to how we do what we do, you know, how to make contacts, how to do checklist items, how to evaluate a home, risk mitigate it. And the Mobile Mailbox Money Secured book is, you know, just further explanation into our investment strategy. Silvercrest Opportunity Fund is widening our diversification from pad splits and notes to, subject to acquisitions and things of that nature in investor-friendly markets. So if you're an accredited investor, I'd love to talk to you because our competitive returns really beat 9 out of 10 other investment vehicles out in the market. Or if you're looking just for something a little bit safer, that's the fund. That's the, availability that we provide within our portfolio. We are main corporate sponsor of Arizona Real Estate Investors Association. Shout out to Mike Del Pree. It's important to be connected at the end of the day. Mike's actually running for city council in Phoenix. So, being connected to seasoned professionals, and attending those Arizona real estate investor meetings. We have multiple people that join this mastermind from ASREA. We appreciate you being here today. And, if you haven't had the chance to personally reach out or really just have some additional burning questions that you want to get answered, or you have capital today, I'd love to talk to you personally. I'm going to put my personal information in the chat as well as Sonny did as well. But I always like to do that as a little golden nugget just to show that, we're here to do transactions. Does anyone have any final questions, comments, concerns? We have 27 people on this mastermind today. I think that's a record. We're going to continue ringing the bell. We appreciate your interaction today. We do all of this for you. We provide unfiltered value and for free. I do this every week for free. I have trouble sleeping sometimes to try and bring these stuff on the channel, and got to know what to say, got to know how to say it. How can we just continue to bring further value and ultimately take one step closer to financial freedom? What do we call that? That's mobile mailbox money. We appreciate y'all being here today. We'll leave you with one final video. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.
I used to own 17 properties, and every single one of them owned me back. The AC breaks at midnight, the tenant doesn't pay, the contractor ghosts you, the property tax arrives, and the phone never stops. I thought owning property meant owning freedom. What I actually owned was a second job. There is a version of real estate investing that nobody shows you in the highlight reel, where everything you own owns you back. Then I discovered something, a different position. Not the landlord, not the tenant, the lender. A promissory note, a seller finance mortgage on a manufactured home. I hold the paper, the family makes the payment every month. No toilets, no tenants. 400 transactions, $30 million in notes. Every single one to be a family that needed housing, an investor that needed income. The knock at the door used to be my nightmare. Now the only knock I hear is opportunity. If you want to learn how to hold the paper instead of the property.
Thanks for being here this week. We'll see you next week, Thursday, 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. From industry experts and magnates being on the channel to client testimonial videos, the impact that we have with every transaction, every note, every sale is life-changing opportunity for everyone involved. We appreciate y'all being here today. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate you viewing today. Go back and view the previous vlogs, the podcasts, the masterminds, the interviews with industry magnates, experts, and operators around the nation. This is the movement, mobile mailbox money. Y'all have a great one. Bam.